Please.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. This is Cassie Goodwin, Arizona Racing Commission Secretary. This is the April 1st, 2021 Arizona Racing Commission special meeting. I will proceed with the roll call. Commissioner Coolidge.
Present.
Commissioner Garay.
Present.
Commissioner Hover.
Present.
Commissioner Profiter.
Present.
Thank you. This meeting is taking place via Google Meets, and Chair Coolidge, the meeting is now yours.
Thank you. It's Thursday, April 1st, 2021. I call this Arizona Racing Commission special meeting to session, and we are ready to go. Move over to item B, hearing on Arizona Downs LLC application for a 3-year commercial racing permit for fiscal years 2019, 2020, and 2021. We have a lot of people to speak. I'm sure a lot of people want to have their voices heard on it. Also want to open it up to Mr. Estrada and also gentlemen, and I don't have not on the speakers list. Kelly, do we have the attorney who put together the background on everything?
Are you speaking about the auditor, Mr. Linscott?
Linscott, yes, thank you.
I believe he was invited to the meeting and hopefully is present.
Mr. Linscott, are you available? What about Mr. Estrada?
I'm present.
Could you give us an overview of your, and we'll open it up to the speakers. Let me, before I usher it off for you, since we have so many speakers, I'm a 3-minute timeline to each group to be able to speak. But Mr. Estrada, why don't you, I'll give you 5 minutes, or do you think minutes is enough to give an findings?
Yeah, I'll make it very short. I mean, it was a long process to allow that information for you, Mr. Chairman. Again, my name is Juan Estrada, for the record. I began assisting the racing with this project, I believe in August of 2020. The process started. I issued a list for the Arthur brothers to produce the documents to me. They supplied most of the documents, those that weren't needed. By Mr. Linscott advised that they weren't required due to the fact that it wouldn't make a difference. Also, I went back to 2017 and worked down all the way to present date, and the findings are in the report.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the fellow commissioners? Rory, I know you came off mute.
Yeah, well, actually, not a question. If it would please the chair, I would just like to take a moment to make a statement.
Of course.
Okay. 8 years ago, an agenda item much like today was before the commission. After discussion, a motion was made to deny the permittee its renewal. The vote was split 2-2 with one abstaining vote. Finally, after some thought, the commissioner who made the abstaining vote finally cast the deciding vote, grant the permit. The commissioner did not do so for the permittee, but did so for the men and women at the farms, backside, and all involved in the sport. For the past 3 years, Arizona Downs has been the little engine that could. Yes, blowing some heavy dark smoke along the way. But frankly, in my opinion, as a standalone entity, you have run out of track. I want to hear excuses about previous issues today. I want to hear a resolution, but mainly for me, when we are done dating, time to put the diamond ring on Arizona's horse racing finger. Show me the commitment to the men and women involved in the sport that you have the financial wherewithal to pull this upcoming meeting off. For all those involved, I do not ever want to receive again the call, Commissioner, our backing has pulled out, and we will be holding a meeting soon with the backside to let them know we're shutting down. Time to show Arizona your commitment. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner Dury.
Chair Coolidge, if I may just interject, this is Kelly Wagner.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Estrada, if you could provide a little bit more detail for the commission so that they can ask any questions that they might have concerning the report, I think that would be appropriate so that the commission can entertain a full hearing and have a full and fruitful discussion.
So again, the whole detail, I went back to 2017, as I stated in the board. We were first approached by Tom Author back in 2017. They were considering to run live racing without obtaining ownership first. Then we move on to 2018. All the key individuals submitted their applications. At the time, their personal suitability for individuals that were involved didn't raise a red flag. Again, owners submitted a renewal permit application, and that's due in 2018, which was very noticeable that their permit application only included $73,000 in a bank, Chase Bank, that was for operational purposes. I didn't see any other areas for money there. Again, moving on to 2019, we received a motion or a letter stating that Prescott Valley was changing their name to Arizona Downs, and shortly after there, they were granted race dates in which they only ran 12 days of live racing the beginning. And again, due to lack of funds, they were I'm not sure, forced to close down. That's the proper wording I want to use. But at that point, they obtained approximately $11 million from Iron Hills. Again, on or about June 28th, Arizona Downs notified the division of a possible new investor. Here again, I believe the Author brothers were approved to run live racing. The money was obtained from Crystal Barrow, or the Barrows, for approximately $1.2 million. In total, the Arizona Downs were able to complete 26 days of live racing. And again, it seems that throughout the process, you can see on the timeline where the Author brothers were struggling during this time with financial stability. It almost seems like their paperwork wasn't turned in on time, or when the commission or when the division asked them to do so. Due to their financial stability, the division contracted Christopher D. Linscott to do a financial due diligence report, which again, if you refer back to that report, it states that they're financially unstable, and they couldn't afford to operate their operations even with their personal monies. 2020, number of locations. They stated that due to COVID-19, they were going to close facilities. During this time, with very little interruption, their OTVs to operate. So in 2020, we requested again more documents to make sure that we provided we did our due diligence to make sure that we were comfortable with allowing Arizona Downs to continue with their racing. So during this process, we asked for certain documents. There was one or two documents that took a while to obtain from Arizona Downs, and it was particularly in this instance, it was an ELS agreement that they had obtained. They did provide one early on, however, it was heavily redacted to where it was unusable to us for us to evaluate, to make a determination. Ultimately, in 2020, Arizona Downs did not conduct any live racing. In 2020, there was no live racing. 2021, a unredacted ELS agreement between Arizona Downs and ELS agreement was produced. Again, this agreement contained a lot of uncertainties. It almost seemed like it was dependent on HHR, depending on the outcome of that. We go back to the external financial due diligence report, which again it was available for you guys to review and evaluate. Mr. Linscott did a great job communicating with me and making sure that you guys got the correct information. On or about March 2nd, Arizona Downs notified in a letter of a new agreement with Peninsula Downs, which is where we stand. We met with Peninsula Downs yesterday, which we saw positive things, which I'll let Director Casillas elaborate a little bit more into that. And onto that, I had very little communication once I started my report with Arizona Downs, and that was due to making sure that I provided you guys with the best recommendation that I could without outside influence or influence from Arizona Downs. And that's all I have.
Mr. Estrada, this is Commissioner Gorey. This permit is for the 2019, 2020, 2021 season, correct? So I guess in essence, this permit would just basically be for this upcoming meet should it get approved.
That's correct.
Okay. And myself, I don't know about others, but I do have the concern about the HHR that we all know the session will be ending in the next month or so, that if HHR was not to pass, are they suddenly pulling out? I want to know that the money is there, and if we run this meet, we're running it. We're not pulling out upstream.
Hey, Commissioner Gorey, just to jump in there, this application would only go for half of the meet, not the entire meet, to my knowledge.
Yes. Could somebody clarify that for us?
Mr. Chairman, this is Director Casillas. You are correct that this covers only through June 30th. The current application permit that's being reviewed is for fiscal year 19, 20, and 21. It expires June 30th of 21, so it would only be valid up until that date.
Thank you, sir. Do we have Mr. Linscott yet?
Yes, I'm on.
Hey, thanks for joining. Would you be so kind as to give us an overview of your findings in the accounting financials?
Sure, and I apologize. I wasn't aware of this meeting and was just contacted, so I apologize for being late.
Well, I appreciate you joining on the fly.
No problem. Yeah, I mean, we did a review of Arizona Downs. You know, it's lost money. It is being supported by ELS at this point in time under an agreement that they have. They have been able to catch up to a large extent with their accounts payable through funding by ELS. But you know, absent that relationship, I think it's a struggle for them to go forward without that, you know, amount of capitalization potentially there, and based on the losses that they're incurring. That's essentially the overview.
Well, I appreciate it. Any of my other commissioners have any questions for Mr. Linscott?
I don't. I just know I would love to hear a little bit more about how this whole connection is working and the funding that's going to be available. It's really important for me to know that it's there and how this is going to work.
Yeah. Well, why don't we take that to, and Mr. Author, I see you raising your hand. I have you as scheduled to speak, so why don't we expedite you up to the top here? Dave Author, do you want to give your comments now, and then we'll run through the people who have asked to speak, and then chat through some of the other items. So, Mr. Dave Author.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Good. Dave Author for Arizona Downs. I didn't mean to interrupt your flow, Commissioner Coolidge, but there's been a couple of questions from the members of the commission wondering how things are working, and it's probably best that I address those now before we go any farther. First of all, I appreciate you taking the time to consider our permit. The first thing that I want to address is the comment from Director Casillas that this permit would expire somehow halfway through our meet. I don't know how that would work practically, commissioners, but we have certainly been under the impression that the meet would be run under the current, there's that Greyhound, under the current permit, and then that we would reapply for the next meet and the next meet and the next meet thereafter for the next 3-year permit. I don't have an answer. I'm raising that question as something that we should discuss at some point. But be that as it may, our goal for the last several years has been to put together a reasonable financial package so we could run meets every year. We failed in the 2019 meet because we didn't have enough money obtained through our OTB system to finish that meet on time. And so we didn't want that to ever happen again, and we also didn't want to ever run a meet that was crummy. A couple of days, $30,000 purses, don't get any good horses to show up. I think it's a discredit to us and a discredit to the horsemen if we try to run a meet like that. So we have endeavored in the last year or so, and Commissioner Coolidge, I hope I have more time than 3 minutes. I hate to get cut off, but anyway.
Yeah, yes, sir. I'm going to allocate Mike's time as well.
Okay, I'll try to speed it up. Having decided that we wanted to run a decent meet in calendar year 2021, we set out trying to find financial partners who could participate with us, and the thing that we had to offer was the sale of our company. And so we engaged ELS Gaming before the last legislative session, and they agreed to support our company with periodic payments and to pay substantially all of the past due bills. And Mr. Linscott has indicated that to you, and he indicated that in his report. Unfortunately, the legislative session ended abruptly with the COVID problem, so we then moved into the legislative session of 2020, and we are financing in part a drive along with Turf Paradise, the Horsemen, and others to enhance the revenue of horse racing through historic racing machines, which has been done throughout the country. At this point, we don't know whether that legislative activity will be successful. We think it will be. In any event, whether or not it is successful, our new partner, Peninsula Pacific Entertainment, has agreed to finance this meet, whether we get HHR or whether we don't get HHR at the legislature. And this is all news to Mr. Linscott, because when he completed his assignment, we hadn't made the deal yet with Peninsula Pacific. So So having made that deal, and again, I'm sorry it takes so long, but it just does. You get the lawyers involved in drafting agreements, etc., making it perfect. So we were able to present an agreement in March of this year to the division, which says specifically that Peninsula Pacific will finance the meet for the 2021 racing year consistent with the Horsemen's Agreement, which we have also signed. And that agreement, signed by Bob Hutton, specifically says that we will run 32 days and we will pay purses around $70,000 per day. And that was negotiated with us and with our partners, Peninsula Pacific, so everyone is on the same page to do that. And so what Director Casillas has asked for, rightfully so, is okay, we're 3 weeks away from meeting with the commission, which is today, and we only got the report 3 weeks or 4 weeks ago. What can you show me to demonstrate who these guys are at Peninsula Pacific? And they met with the director, and they produced materials to him, including articles of organization and operating agreements in the first go-round. So that
I'm going to give you 3 more minutes to 25.
Okay.
I'm going to cut you off. You're going to have plenty of time to answer questions from the commissioners, I'm sure. So
okay. So then I'll try to speed it up. So then Director Casillas obtained this information and said, we want more. We want some financial information from you. And although I did not attend the meeting yesterday, it's my understanding that the Peninsula Pacific folks provided substantial financial information to demonstrate that their promise to us to pay for this meet in an amount not to exceed $3.5 million is a promise that they can keep because they have the finances to do that. So all of this information arose after Mr. Linscott's report and after Mr. Estrada's report, although it's referenced in there briefly. So what we want to assure the Commission, we're not interested in going over the water under the bridge about why we closed off in 2019, about why we've had problems with our OTBs, about why we got boycotted by Monarch, and all of that stuff. What we are looking toward is the future. And the future now is on June 1st, we're going to open the track and we're going to race until September 15th, and we're going to race 32 days on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And it is our request of you folks in the Commission that you approve our permit to allow us to run. We've got the money and we've got the support of the horsemen, and we're ready to go. And if you have any questions to me or to anyone, I have Mike Weiss on the phone, who is going to be our general manager. I think you all know Mike. He's been running Rito. And I have John Marshall on the phone, who is with Peninsula Pacific, high-level executive with Colonial Downs, which is also owned by Peninsula Pacific, who is available to answer any of your questions also. So my time is probably up, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir. We're going to go ahead to Marshall.
Actually, I had a question for Mr. Arthur, if I may. You mentioned you have the money. I mean, do you guys have it in your account now, or is Peninsula Pacific still got control of it?
Peninsula Pacific has the money.
Okay. And you had also mentioned the $3.5 million. I think that was the ceiling. Are we sure that that is actually enough money to pull this off?
Yes. We have, and we also have accumulating OTB income that will be added to the purse account. We also have accumulating income that will be generated at the live meet in export and by betting at the live meet. So all of those amounts added together, we are absolutely confident, based upon our analysis of what it costs to run operations, purses, etc., that's plenty of funding, probably more than enough, to complete the meet successfully.
Mr. Author, on top of the dollar conversation, that to my knowledge has just come into play over the past week or so, with their investment into your company, who is now running Arizona Downs?
Who is running Arizona Downs? The three of us are, Mike Plum and Joe Jackson, are the owners of Arizona Downs. We are allowing the folks at Peninsula Pacific who are paying for the meet to make a substantial number of decisions with respect to hiring, track conditions, things like that for the meet. But they do not have an ownership position in our company. So I don't know, perhaps I'm waffling a little bit, but we absolutely defer to for a lot of the decisions regarding track conditions, regarding the appropriate days to run, whether it's a weekend or a weekday, regarding hiring. They participated very heavily in the recruitment hiring of Mike Weiss. So those kinds of issues they are participating heavily in, but the ownership of the Arizona Downs is still with the four of us.
Along those lines, I have a question. I think it might be Mr. Marshall that might be able to answer it. Are there these type of arrangements at any other track?
And Mr. Marshall, we have 3 minutes allocated to you for your speaking.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. It's an honor and privilege to be able to address you today and answer your questions. But for that particular question, Arizona Downs and the authors, J-Corp Partners, are considered as our clients. We consider them to be clients as we are managers and consultants for their property and their permit. I say client because of the structure of our consult. In the past, there have been, at least on occasions, a similar arrangement in horse racing. In 2006, I had pioneered the racing service agreement concept with the Stronach Group during my time there at the Meadows racetrack, where I personally fulfilled racing services to our client Cannery Casino Resorts at the time, while they could develop their casino on the property. The second time that I'm aware of, I also negotiated a complex racing service arrangement between Churchill Downs Incorporated and the Stronach Group during the highly publicized Calder and Gulfstream operation, where Gulfstream Park was actually the service provider to Calder, where I had the pleasure of being involved on both ends of this arrangement, one service provider and two as a client receiving services. So in those two occasions, it's very unique to have that experience within P2E and being involved on both ends of the arrangement to have Arizona Downs as our client, but P2E's client. Other than those two occasions, I'm not aware, Mr. Chairman, of any other specifics other than the two I've been directly responsible for.
The question I have for P2E in general is, at one point the data that we saw suggested your investment was paired with legislation that, to my knowledge, has not gone through yet. Has that since been dropped and now a full investment has been made into Turf Paradise with or without requirement of approved legislation?
Yeah, I redefine investment to commitment. P2E has made a commitment to our client to fully fund the 2021 race meet at Arizona Downs from June 1st through the end of September, because even though the last day of racing is September 15th, we are going to operate through the end of September while we stay open for stabling to help our colleagues at Turf Paradise with their decisions on opening for their meet, and also to help our horsemen and your horsemen in being able to be accommodated during the gap of racing in Arizona.
Understood.
I'm going to hound on this.
Commissioners have any questions on that before I move?
I'm going to hound on this one more time because there's definitely been history up there. Prescott Downs, when they left the horsemen high and dry a few years ago, and then again a couple of years ago. I just want to know. I want more than a commitment. I want to actually see the money. I want to know our horsemen are going to be able to run and not all of a sudden open up and get left high and dry again. So that's really important to me for them, that the money is there. It's not just some promise there, and we can do this. We do have a contract with the HBPA and the endorsement by the Arizona Horsemen's Group to address that very question head on. Yesterday, Director Casillas and staff had the opportunity to review our financial viability and assess our financial strength and the strength of our management to be able to deliver on the arrangement. I'm sure staff has rolled up the outcome of that review with the commission. If not, I'm sure it will happen soon. As far as financing, the financing includes out-of-pocket purse subsidy plus the covering of all operating expenses from now through the end of the year.
Or do you have any other questions with that?
No, and I think at some point in time I would love to hear from Mr. Casillas about their meeting yesterday and maybe fill us in as well, but we can wait till that comes up.
Okay. Next person I have to speak is Mike West, who says GM here, GM of Arizona Downs. Weiss, sorry, not West.
That's okay. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission and all the guests who are very interested in this. I want to say that coming in as GM, I'm ready to take on a new challenge, and those of you who know me know that that's something I get very intense about and try and work for success. I am excited to work with P2E. I received a call from Mr. Marshall, and the success that they've had in the past, know of the casino success, know of the racing success. I listened carefully and found genuine sincerity, and while I wasn't sure if I was ready to go back to Arizona so soon, it's just something that I love, and when the word did come out that I was interested and that I was going to take the job, the horsemen, employees, I mean, everything just blew up to the point where I think that we're on a fast track to save Arizona racing. And that's what I have been intent to do. I think we can get to the point where we can get a nice circuit and keep the horses and the horsemen going. And as always, I was excited because now I have another avenue for students at the university. I know I throw that up too often, but now I'm actually official as a racetrack industry program career coordinator and counselor, helping them and have helped many in some career choices and internships, and I hope to use some of those for this project also.
Great, thank you. And so I did say that correctly, and that you're the GM for Arizona Downs now?
Yes, and I'm working directly under Mr. Marshall. So I will be on the grounds next week and get my feel, and already in the last couple of days I've already been putting positions in place.
Got it. So I'll go back to Mr. Author now, pursuant to item 5-107, where each new officer director, or substantial owner shall furnish all information requested by the department to facilitate approval of his or her participation in racing in the state. Have you submitted all of those documents to the state? Have you,
for Mr. White?
Mr. White's been vetted by the department?
I don't know that he has been vetted by the department for Arizona Downs, but he's been vetted by the department for Rito. And so I'm going to assume, Chairman Coolidge, without knowing, that he is perfectly licensed and permitted to be our general manager. If he is not yet, then he was only hired. I wrote the letter on the 29th, I think. So, Mike, you need to get your paperwork in right away.
I am licensed in the state already. I have been general manager at Rito for 6 years, and I am on the Rito Park Inc. License also, permit also.
Mike, you are well known in the industry and well respected, but I would strongly advise the department to communicate with Arizona Downs, and I believe the statute number is 5-10702, which again should have been done before accepting the position so that the commission can vet you officially. But
I'm happy to get you anything you need. Like I said, I've been general manager for 6 years, so I didn't realize there was more that had to be done, and I am licensed already, but that's fine. And I can get with Mr. Stiles and give him anything he needs in the next couple of days.
Please do. Next person to speak is Loretta Brasher, or AQRA. Loretta, are you on?
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I just want to throw my support in for everybody. I've worked with, well, first of all, I'm Loretta Brasher. I'm the executive director of the Arizona Port Racing. I pretty much, help with all the racing for the quarter horses at all the different tracks. I've worked with Mike. I've worked with Arthur Brothers. I've worked with our racing secretary that they've hired. I look forward to summer racing again for the quarter horses. We need it. We need year-round racing in Arizona, and our owners, breeders, we need this desperately. So my plea, and I had written you guys a letter, my plea is to help these guys get going. Whatever they need, they know I'm here to support them in any way, shape I can. But this is for rural Arizona as well. Rito, Prescott, Arizona Downs, they reach out. I mean, we're metropolitan up here at Turf Paradise, but these reach out into the rural communities and have jobs. I mean, it's just so outreaching that we need it. We need this desperately. So I'm just asking for you guys to vote to give them what they need, and let's get up the hill and get this racing going. Thank you for your time.
Appreciate it.
Mr. Chair, this is Commissioner Gorey. I just wanted to bring up with what you were saying earlier with regards to Mr. Weiss and his paperwork. So at some point in time, I would like to hear from Rudy or Greg to ensure that all those that are required to have their paperwork submitted for to be vetting, that it's done or it's in process. Because I know previously there was an unknown investor that had not been vetted by the department, and that was in the time pulled out, left everyone high and dry. So again, I just want to make sure that we don't make that mistake again.
I agree. Next person I have to speak on the list is Miss Kelsey Lundy. Ms. Lundy, are you ready to speak?
I am. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, commissioners. For the record, my name is Kelsey Lundy with Compass Strategies, and I represent Turf Paradise. And I just want to, I'm not weighing in for or against the decision on the permit. What I want to ensure that all the commissioners realize is that you are setting a precedent. If you look at the auditor's report, it says that Arizona Downs is insolvent and that their only investor, potential investor, at the time was ESL Gaming, now apparently is Pinnacle, but that it's contingent on historical racing machines becoming law. And I can tell you, having been down at the Capitol all session, historical racing machines is not going to become law in Arizona. It has a very slim chance of being able to become law. There have been significant oversights, if you will, during the entire temporary permit process of Arizona Downs. Commissioner Goray just mentioned that they did not disclose one of their investors in their initial application, which my understanding is not allowed under the law and under the regulations at the Department of Racing. The reason that you have to disclose all investors, all lenders, all owners is to ensure the integrity of racing in Arizona. It's not just a check the box. And so I would caution you that when you are looking at, I didn't even realize that you could approve a permit going back 2 whole years. I wasn't aware that you could have a temporary permit for going on almost 3.5 to 4 years. But you are setting a precedent that it is okay to have a financially unstable owners of a racetrack in the state of Arizona. Turf Paradise and Mr. Sims in general gets beat up a lot, but he went through an extremely thorough background when he applied for his permit, when he purchased Turf Paradise over 20 years ago. That did not happen with Arizona Downs. And I would caution you that Arizona Downs' financial future is not stable. My understanding is to Mr. Marshall's point, is that Pinnacle has made a commitment. They have not actually made a move on their option to purchase Arizona Downs. And again, it is precipitated on the passage of historical racing machines. I'm not sure if everyone is aware, but 19 of the 22 Indian tribes sent a letter to the governor and leadership of both the House and the Senate, making very clear that they will never support nor entertain a conversation around historical racing machines in Arizona. That's a pretty powerful message. And so if you're making your decision based on the fact that there could be historical racing machines in Arizona, which means that Pinnacle could potentially invest in Arizona Downs, that is a big gamble because I do not believe that that is likely to happen. So again, I just want to remind you, you are setting a precedent here on what the requirements will be in the future. And, trust me, my entire last 3.5 years would have been much easier had Arizona Downs been a super successful meet during the summer and we had year-round racing. But unfortunately, you have to deal with reality, not what you wish will happen. And so, again, those are my comments, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Lundy. Dave, since I've seen you raise your hand as well, I'd love to hear what input you have on if the track has spoken to the governor's office. Have you met with the legislature? Your input on, you've been quite vocal about the passage of the bill, but would love to hear your response on that.
Well, let me, in conjunction with that, I'd like to respond to Ms. Lundy, who started her speech by saying she's not weighing in on whether you should grant the permit. I wonder what she'd say if she was weighing in on whether to grant the permit. Anything worse, do you think she could say? However, she said 3 or 4 things that are factually incorrect, but we're used to that. We're used to that. First of all, she said that our deal with Peninsula is dependent upon the passage of HHR. That is incorrect. I don't know how to say it and how many times I can say it, but Peninsula Pacific is committed to running this meet, which is the last official act of our permit, whether or not HHR passes. So Ms. Lundy is 0 for 1 on telling the truth. Secondly, she says that we did not tell the truth about our investors when we applied. That is also incorrect. The only investor we had was us. We had lenders, and we specifically talked to the division, and lenders do not have to be identified in your initial application. Just like whether we borrow money from a bank or anyone else, they do not have to be identified. So now she's 0 for 2. Thirdly, she claims that the temporary permit has gone on for a couple of years. I don't know if this is correct, so maybe she's not 0 for 3, but I believe Turf Paradise ran on a temporary permit for mayors. Greg or Mr. Director Casillas could tell us that. Next, she said she was disappointed that Turf Paradise had a thorough background check when Mr. Sims came to Arizona. It looks like they did not have a thorough background check, because when they conducted a thorough background check, he failed to get a permit when he applied for the Indian permit. I don't know why that is. You'll have to read the Court of Appeals opinions on those. And finally, with all due respect to Scott, there was a gratuitous, I believe, statement in there that said we were insolvent because we couldn't pay our bills as they became due. That is factually incorrect. For the last year, we have paid all of our bills as they become due. Unfortunately, Turf Paradise did a FOIA request and obtained the Linscott report and passed it around, and it embarrassed us, as their intent was to do. But I don't know, I'm just telling you, we were not insolvent. We were paying our bills as they became due, and we were shocked to see that in the report. Finally, directly to your question, Chairman Coolidge, I am not particularly involved in the lobbying effort down at the legislature. You'll have to ask someone else about how we're doing. It's disappointing to hear that one of our partners in this effort, Turf Paradise, is so pessimistic and apparently not. I don't know if they're trying to help or not, but we are definitely trying to get the HHR passed. We have strategies and people working on it, and we're very hopeful it'll happen. And it's not just to make us rich, it's to save horse racing in Arizona, because without that enhanced income, horse racing will continue to struggle as it is right now.
Thank you. Ms. Lundy, I'll give you 2 minutes just to give your report.
Mr. Marshall, I think, wanted to corroborate what I just said, if you don't mind.
I'm gonna give the floor back to Kelsey, and then we can move on.
Thank you. Thank you. Commissioners, again, number one, I don't lie, so that's a pretty ludicrous statement to make. But all of my information came from the auditor's report, and so in that report, it even mentioned the investor, maybe it was a lender, but the 2019 race meet stopped in the middle of its race because said lender or said investor pulled out. That was why the race meet stopped. We still, to this day, I'm not aware of who that lender was. And my understanding is that unless you're an FDIC insured bank, that yes, if you are just a individual lender, if Kelsey Lundy decided to lend money to Arizona Downs, you have no idea who I'm associated with, where my money is coming from. And so yes, my understanding is that the Department of Racing is supposed to look into lenders and that they're supposed to be disclosed if they're not an FDIC insured institution. And also, yes, my understanding, according to the report, is that A, they said that Arizona Downs was insolvent, and B, that report says that the option to purchase Arizona Downs by, at the time, ELS Gaming, maybe that has now changed with Pinnacle, was dependent on historical horse racing. So everything that I have stated was in that report. And again, my whole point of all of this is that you are setting a precedent on what the requirements will be, the financial requirements, the disclosure requirements on future permits in looking at this. And so you really need to weigh that carefully and look at the facts and look at whether or not they truly are going to be financially sound past this summer's race meet. I've never heard of anyone saying, well, we're going to be able to race this summer. Well, what's going to happen the following summer and the summer after that? You have to look at the long-term financial viability of Arizona Downs and ensure that you're making a decision that is in the best interest of horse racing, which is having financially sound racetracks. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioner Profiter, did you want to jump in and say something?
Yeah, I wasn't sure who Kelsey Lundy is. You said you were a representative. Are you their lawyer or their lobbyist, or who are you?
Commissioner Profiter, yes, I'm Kelsey Lundy. I'm the managing partner of Compass Strategies, which is a public affairs firm here in Phoenix, and we represent Turf Paradise both at the Arizona Legislature and obviously at the Arizona Racing Commission.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Marshall, do you want 2 minutes to subsequently add something there?
All that I have to add is to clarify an understanding that may be a misunderstanding after hearing a few speakers, is that whether Peninsula Pacific is investing, committing, obligated to fund, whatever word we want to use, the fact is we have a contract with our client, Arizona Downs, to fund, manage, and consult for the live race meet and to see that through. And that contractual obligation is not contingent upon HHR legislation passing.
When you use the adjective manage, what are you managing for Arizona Downs, if you don't mind me asking?
We're managing the financing, the application and execution of operations of the live race meet on their behalf.
Understood. Okay, we'll move over to Mr. Guessman, Leroy Guessman with AZH BPA.
Good morning, Chairman. Leroy Guessman, the Arizona HBPA. It's good to talk to you and the fellow commissioners and staff this morning. I just want to say I want everyone to know we do have a contract with Arizona Downs for this upcoming race meet. All the details have been worked out. We've been assured that the meet will go on and that money is there. I also want to say that all my years of, which was probably 15 years of going to the Iowa Racing Commission meetings, and I've been familiar with the Peninsula 2 Gaming for a long time, and they are a well-respected organization in the state of Iowa and the gaming community. I also work very closely with Frank Petramala, the HBPA director in Colonial Downs, and he speaks very highly of Peninsula 2 Gaming, John Marshall, Jill Byrne, and the thing that Frank has mentioned to me is how focused they are on the horsemen, how focused they are on the safety of the racetrack. Colonial Downs has one of the safest and most horse-friendly racetracks on the East Coast. Also, they care about the horsemen, and they take care of their needs, and they take care of their facility, make it safe. Another thing Frank mentioned to me is they're very concerned about the aftercare program of horses, and they help contribute to that, which is something we could use in Arizona as well. With that, I just want to know The horsemen are excited about going to Arizona Downs. We gave out over 250 stall applications so far, and we're just waiting for the word. I'll close with that unless there's any questions. I know there's some other members from the horse community that want to speak.
Leroy, this is Commissioner Gorey. What is the benefit to our industry with having year-round racing?
I think it's very beneficial. It helps the breeding industry. It creates more economic development in the rural areas with more breeding, more horse facilities. We need more horses for year-round racing. I remember back, this is probably 15 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, there was a lot of Arizona horsemen that did come to Prairie Meadows, and they had some really nice, well-bred Arizona breds. Great quality of horses. And I'm just, I've seen that dwindle over the years. The purses have gone down over the years. I just think it's been a shame as what's happened here. And Peninsula 2 has given us a new life and a new breath, as far as I'm concerned, in the Arizona racing.
Thank you, Mr. Gussman. Scott Claus, I saw your hand up before. Are you still wanting to speak?
Yes, Commissioner Coolidge, thank you. Just very briefly on one limited issue, which I was not planning on speaking about because this information came as a surprise to me, and I believe it is something that the Commission really needs to pay attention to, and it is based upon your questions, Chairman Coolidge. There is a statute, and Ms. Wagner can share with you her reading of the statute as well, but it's pretty clear. It is ARS 5-107.02, and it states that no person, association, or corporation is eligible to operate a racing meet without a permit. I was not aware, Chairman Coolidge, until you asked Mr. Author what the role of Peninsula Pacific would be when he told you that they would be making, quote, all operational decisions, end quote, that they would be responsible for track conditions, that they would be responsible for hiring personnel. But that wasn't just a slip of the tongue, because it was then subsequently confirmed by both Mr. Weiss, who said, quote, I will be working directly under Mr. Marshall of Peninsula Pacific, and then in response to your questions of Mr. Marshall just now, what exactly is Peninsula Pacific doing for Arizona Downs, he responded, we are responsible for the financing and we are responsible for the application and, quote, all of it's a quote, but this is the important part, operation of the race meet. If Peninsula Pacific is going to operate the race meet, it must be permitted under Arizona law. If it is not permitted, and this is what's critical for the Commission, if it is not permitted and it is operating the race meet, it is not subject to any regulation by this Commission. It is not subject to any regulation by Mr. Casillas, by Mr. Vogt, because it is operating a race meet without a permit, which means that every time a race runs, it is violating Arizona law. I was not aware that this was going to be the case until Mr. Author revealed it this morning, but it is a critical and fundamental issue that the Commission needs to consider, because the permittee is the only entity that can operate a race meet, and you have now the individuals. Mr. Author, Mr. Weiss, and Mr. Marshall confirm that Arizona Downs is not going to be operating the race meet. but that Peninsula Pacific will be operating the race meet, and they have no permit. I'll answer any questions you have about that statute, but it is also confirmed by the Administrative Code 19-2-04.
Understood. Thank you, sir. Lloyd Yorther for AZH-PBA. You want to speak, Lloyd?
Yes, Mr. Commissioner, Chairman Commissioner Coolidge, this is Lloyd Yorther. I am, as of March 13th, 2021, the new president of the Arizona Quarter Racing Association for my fourth or fifth time. But I'm asking for your support to renew the permit, or a temporary permit for Arizona Downs to hold a mixed race meet in Prescott Valley. Arizona horsemen to be able to stay, for the fact that the Arizona horsemen be able to stay home instead of for those that can afford to go out of the state to race their horses, to be considered, and the fact that enough's been said about Bill House anyway is about what the legalities are and what the commissions do, but it is very imperative and important that we get all advantages that possible to continue year-round racing for the quarter horse industry as well as thoroughbred industry. And I will be willing to take any questions if you have any. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, sir. Congratulations on your next term. Mr. Author, or excuse me, Mr. Author.
Next endeavor now. Thank you.
Mr. Owen, are you?
I'm sorry, did you call me? Oh, sorry. Hello?
Mr. Owen?
Yes, sir.
Are you ready to speak?
Yes, sir. This is Kevin Owens. I'm a member of the Arizona HBPA board. I'm a member of the Arizona Thoroughbred Breeders Board. I've been in this state for my life. I'm a second-generation breeder. I believe the reopening of Arizona Downs is very essential to both the horsemen and the breed industry. We've been in a steady decline due to instability. The last year with the COVID kind of ransacked our industry as a breeding group that my father and I are both members of. We're down, we have 40 mares. We only bred probably 8. Due to not only Arizona Downs' instability, but their Paradise's instability through the last year. So instability is industry-wide. I believe the Pacific group is very determined to bring this meet to fruition. I believe they have the horsemen and the breeders' interest truly at heart, which, you know, sometimes lets you wander about the other racing entities in this state. I have my full support. The horsemen, I believe, are behind this 1,000%. I believe the permit issue is something that you guys in the commission can handle. Help these guys get across the line and get this track open. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Kevin Eichelberry, looks like. Kevin, are you on? Mr. Alvarez, Freddie Alvarez.
Kevin, you're on mute.
Kevin's here now.
I'm here now. I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, it's Kevin Eckleberry. I really appreciate you guys letting me speak to me. You know, I've heard a lot of talk on everything else. And when we started this process of year-round racing, everybody was in favor of this. And now I hear somebody's not in favor of it, and they've been very vocal of it. I don't understand. 6 months ago, it looked like we might not have no more racing in Arizona. Turf Paradise was going to be sold. It was gone. Right now, our future looks pretty good, but it doesn't look good without Arizona Downs and year-round racing. If you want racing to survive in this deal, we need this bad, guys. And that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Alvarez.
Good morning, Commissioners. I had this nice, sweet letter for you guys to read to you, but I'm not going to read it to you. I'm just going to say, you know, HPBA has approved this. You know, the Horsemen have approved this. I met with John Marshall. He's a very good guy. They got very good intentions. All you guys are hurting is the Horsemen. I mean, we've suffered enough. Let us have this. We go out of town. It costs us thousands of dollars as an owner, as a trainer. It just, I mean, if everybody's behind it, you guys need to get behind it. I mean, that's all I got to say. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Ms. Campos, Stacy Campos. Stacy. Mr. Fleming.
Stacy's on mute.
Mr. Chairman, Stacy's there. She's just muted.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So many people, Commissioner, this is Stacy Campo. I'm kind of part of the younger generation here in Arizona, and my father and I own a farm in Waddell, Arizona. We breed for Arizona. We ship out across the United States. I mean, we've got mares that were shipped out to Kentucky, California, but we drop them all in Arizona. So we are trying to enhance the breeding program with better quality horses. Nothing has been stagnant here with the breeds, which has been kind of nice, which has been kind of exciting to see, you know, Hardspuns and Macho Unos, and I'm sure some of the people don't understand some of the bloodline, but the bettors do. And when the bettors start looking at some of our horses that are running at Turf Paradise, it's showing that we have the quality to be here and be treated just like we are in California, Kentucky, Iowa, and you know, we got an owner like my father, which is John Campo, which may you know. He's on the Arizona Breeders Association and has gone out of his way to do legal work to help maintain, be able to keep the breeders, you know, taken care of in a proper way. He's given me the opportunity to train the horses for him in the state of Arizona. I am licensed in California too, which some of our horses are Cal bred, but they are Arizona bred, or Cal sired Arizona bred. So we have the availability to be able to race in two places. But the thing is, our mares drop here in Arizona. You know, and then when we're involving and staying home, and you know, it's important to have year-round racing. And when we hear people that, you know, want to sit there and say, you know, that there's a possibility it doesn't happen. Well, you know, if it wasn't for the breeders, and if it wasn't for the owners, and it isn't for the trainers, the farriers, the vets, we've got the farms that produce our crops in Arizona that really depend on these tracks. You guys don't understand. We have feed companies that starve in the summertime, yet they strive to stay open the best they can, even though most of the clients have to leave the state, which they shouldn't have to leave the state. They need to stay here. And, you know, we have the availability to have somebody to build a track or revamp a track, or, you know, we've got Relita, we've got now Arizona Downs, and you give us the opportunity to stay here and grow and produce better stock. You know, these farriers, they struggle in the summertime. They don't have the work. Their work is here at Turf, but it shouldn't be just Turf Paradise to be able to allow people to survive in this state. You know, it just it doesn't seem to make sense to me that, you know, and I've talked to the owner, Jerry, And Jerry, he says he definitely is all for another track in the state, so I'm not really sure if he still believes that Arizona Downs has a possibility of having a new owner, that he would support the new one. And, it's important to me that I get to stay home, with my family. The ferries get to stay home with their families. The veterinarians get to stay home with their families. The grooms that are forced to leave their kids that are in school here to go to another state to survive. If you guys can't understand how needed this is, then, I'm not sure what we're all fighting for. But I'm going to do, no matter what, I'm going to stay here. I'm going to fight for all 3 tracks, and there's no reason why we can't have the biggest sporting mecca here, along with baseball and football. My racing colors are purple and orange because of the Phoenix Suns. We only had 2 major groups here. We had the Roadrunners and the Phoenix Suns to watch sports. We've got football, baseball, we got golf, we've got everything professional, spring training. We've got everything here. Why is our horse racing not at the top of that mecca? But I'll let you guys go. I appreciate you taking the time to hear from me. But, there should be no reason why that track shouldn't run. And if it wasn't for the horses and the stock, Turf Paradise wouldn't exist either. It's the owners that need to be catered and the trainers need to be taken care of. That's all I got to say. I appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for your time.
Thanks.
Mr. Gussman, would you mind muting your microphone for me, please?
Sorry.
Last one we have to speak is Marv Fleming. Mr. Fleming?
I'm sorry to interrupt. I also asked to speak. This is Jerry Sims.
Let's give Mr. Fleming 2 more seconds, Mr. Sims. The floor is yours.
Is that me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you to the chairman and the board members, commission members. I didn't know until Scott Claus, my attorney, mentioned and told about what the statute says. And that is, I don't know how you get over that hurdle, not changing the law. But I will tell you, I was the one to respond about a different issue. I think Scott did a very good job. And what I wanted to mention is, it seemed like there's a lot of people, horsemen, that really want this to occur. I don't know if that gets the law changed, but for now, they want that to occur. And one of the commissioners asked a question about the money being put up rather than just a commitment. It seems to me that, again, I don't know how you get over that law, the statutes, but I'm speaking about just the money. To make these, if you went ahead and you agreed to this, the money has to be in the account. And I don't know why it hasn't been, but that would make the folks on the phone and the ones that are on the farms and the ones that I have been referred to feel this is really going to happen. But when the money doesn't move over there, as one of the commissioners asked, a lot of contracts get broken. And a lot of people have to sue. And the courts are full of them, where there was a contract and one claims it didn't live up to it or whatever. I'm not subject, I haven't seen any of the contracts, but still, putting up the money in the bank account would cure that concern, the $3.5 million that they're responsible for. That money gets put up, wired this afternoon, tomorrow morning. Then, again, that doesn't get past the statutes, but that would be my comment about the money being in the account very quickly. So, thank you for giving me the time.
Thank you, sir. We dive deeper. Do I have any other comments from our commissioners?
Only for myself is, again, I do want to make sure that all our T's are crossed and I's dotted, because I do think the commission, we may have failed 3 years ago in ensuring all that. So I want to make sure going forward that is done. And also, I just want to know the money is definitely there. As Mr. Sims did mention that, yes, contracts do get broken. Our horsemen, I'm the biggest advocate for the horsemen, but I want to know the money is there and they're not going to be left high and dry again. It's happened to them before. I'm not going to let them get screwed again.
Thank you, Commissioner Gore. And I would echo your comments there. I think, the issue that I have, and Ms. Campo, I couldn't agree more with what you're coming from or where you're coming from. And I don't think you're going to find a member of this commission that doesn't wholeheartedly agree that we would love to see year-round racing. I don't think you're going to find a member of this commission that doesn't agree with you that we want to do whatever's in the best interest of the families that are breeding all the way up to, the people that are betting at the racetrack. Every commissioner on this commission wants to make sure we're doing the best thing we can for the industry possible. So I hope you, as a horseman, and everyone else knows that is, and I won't speak for all the commissioners after that, but I'll say it for myself, that is why we're even sitting on this commission, right? The issue that I have, that I consistently have with this permit in particular, is we have bent this rule as hard as possible to make sure that the racing happens. We want to see the racing happen. However, we fall into these lines of bendable rules and clean breaking the law. And to me, that is the biggest holdup I have when I have to look at this application to say, okay, we're going to approve or deny it. We don't really care so much about the legalities of how to approve the application. And frankly, if I was on this commission before, I never would have approved the permit because of the lack of factual evidence that we have that is listed then. For example, 5-10402, the department shall require an annual financial audit to be conducted of each permittee licensed under this chapter. Don't have it. Commission may reduce the number of racing days on a permittee or revoke the permit or license of a person who knowingly fails or refuses to make the prescribed returns or exhibits to give them information as required. Has happened multiple times, but we looked past it. 5-107, every applicant making an application for permit to hold a racing meeting shall file an application with the commission. Happened. Then we dive all the way back down to what we just touched on earlier on the new GM. Ann McGovern was approved. Now we have an unapproved person that just skipped the line. I don't have a problem with them, but they need to fall under the licensee restrictions of what's put forward. Everyone else has, but yet we continue to bend the rules so that we can keep racing happening, right? I can go on and on. A complete financial statement and balance sheet of the person, corporation, and other public business entity making such application completed and certified by a certified public accountant. We're getting until it took us years to finally get more financial auditing. To the day before the meeting, we are getting, we don't care about the legislation anymore. We're going to use this other firm. All that to say, I'm very excited about P2E. Sounds like the horsemen are very excited about P2E. I think they could be that factor of change for Arizona Downs. I do. And I think they could be the one to right the ship and start falling into line on the things that the state has made as law through the commission and through the Department of Racing to ensure this is a fair platform for everyone and everyone is doing it by the book. We do not want to have racing just bending over rules for everybody to make sure everything happens. So I can go on and on and on about all of the different line items. Just the ones off the top of my head that are the biggest for me are the holding documents and information, annual financial audits, complete financial statements and balance sheets, monthly financial status requested by the department after the 2019 early closing of the race meet. Again, we can go on and on and on, but when we are not following the rules, when we're not following the law, is when this commission needs to take a stance on what do we want to happen in racing in general, and how do we make a step forward to do this in the right way. And with that, I'll open it up to my fellow commissioners to see if anyone else has any other comments.
No, Mr. Coolidge, with what you just said, I would hear from Arthur Brothers or Mr. Marshall, being an old Navy guy, how are you going to get this back to being ship shape? How are we get forward to you, sir?
Is that directed to me?
I think Mr. Marshall's frozen, it looks like.
No, he's moved.
Okay, are we working? Okay, thanks. Points very well expressed and very well taken by the chairman, of course, stated very, very clearly. I did want to bring up that the financing conversations have been ongoing and have been discussed with Director Casillas and staff as recent as yesterday, and we're awaiting direction from the department on the desired handling of those. The matter of licensing, P2E is in the progress of a vendor application, vendor licensing application, believing that is the route that we need to go, given the structure of things. And our apologies if we were a bit too presumptuous, believing that Michael Weiss's existing licensing would carry through from Raledo to Arizona Downs, and that's something that we can handle quite promptly. And I myself have been asked to be licensed as offering consult to our client, with Michael, and that too is in progress.
And let me be clear, it really has nothing to do with Mr. Weiss in general. The reason why I brought it up is because it is a pattern that we see of we're just going to do what we want until the commission or the department says, hey, you are now in violation and now you need to come back. But that just for clarity purpose.
Yeah, and that viewpoint is inappropriate, and we apologize if that is the perception of things, because the intent of that happening is not there, at least from our perspective. But to get to your initial question, Mr. Chairman, how we plan to right the ship, in your words, it's a very simple formula that's been successful for us, and it's making sure the horse is in front of the cart in horse racing, so to speak, okay? So the statement we heard from Ms. Campo and Mr. Guestman and some of the other horsemen, I'm certain that they will appreciate a partner who allows the horse to be in front of the cart. We know that as vendors and as management and even owners and permittees like the authors, we're along for the ride. The horsemen are the ones that put this together. It's the livelihoods of them and everyone else who's associated with agribusiness who depends on these race days and these permits. And quite frankly, the whole industry depends on all the licensees and everyone that work together for a brighter future for horse racing in Arizona. I found it a bit unusual that Lindsay, who I haven't met, and no disrespect, may be speaking on behalf of our client as though the future of horse racing in Arizona or the HHR pursuits are not important or may not happen. We tend to emphasize the positive and to look forward rather than backwards. But back to the simple formula of riding the ship, it starts with the horse, it starts with safety. on the racetrack, and it continues with horseman relations. I've learned over the years that if you don't have good relationships with the horsemen, you really have nothing to work with. It gets pretty hollow really quickly if you have horsemen that are not content. So that's our strategy, so to speak. We want to partner with not only our permit holder and client, Arizona Downs, but the HBPA in Arizona, as we have in Virginia. I lean on Virginia as our most recent proof of concept, to where the track was on a 6-year hiatus, and we went from an average daily purse of 0 to an average daily purse of $500,000 per day overnight. And a lot of that was done because of the great planning from Frank Petramala and the Virginia Horsemen's Group, giving us that advantage. But Virginia Horsemen has nowhere to go but up right now, and it's a very enlightening experience, one we would like to emulate in Arizona and be part of. And we feel very strongly that we together with Leroy and Bob and the Horsemen's Group there, and it requires working together with Turf Paradise and our colleagues and friends there, as well as Relito, to make this happen. We did take the time to meet with the horsemen as P2E when we arrived. We also took some time to meet with the management at Turf Paradise, Mr. Francia and Mr. Johnson. Quite refreshing. They seem to have the same goals as we do, which made me even more confused listening to Ms. Lindsay speak. But if I may say anything, it's that the groups are together wanting this permit to be approved for the right reasons. HHR or no HHR, we're contractually obligated, and we're then willing to put forward the funds to fund the 2021 race meet, and hopefully beyond 2021. Looking for a bright future.
Just a couple of follow-up questions there. So earlier I asked Mr. Author who owns and who will be operating the track. With P2E's $3.5 million investment, I don't assume you're doing that in goodwill. So what does that get you, and how do you let's say you do get approved through this year and you submit your $3.5 million investment, what happens next year?
Next year, with the new permit renewal, when we may come back to you and ask to do it again.
Going back to my first question, your $3.5 million investment, how has that broken down into ownership status or profit sharing?
From a profit sharing perspective, there really is none. We don't expect to have a profit at this race meet. From an ownership perspective, J-Corp Partners continues to be owner, as we're a vendor supplying consult and management.
Can you give me any more information on that? So you're a vendor that has submitted $3.5 million to your client,
right?
With no equity in the company.
Right. We have no current equity, but future options as we move forward. I believe that our agreements and our supporting documents have been submitted to staff. The intention of those is for us to be a vendor, be involved, participate in saving horse racing in Arizona, and have a bright future. It allows us to stay engaged in the future with options to even get more intimately involved with an equity position.
Okay. Any of my other commissioners have any questions?
Actually, I kind of have one. Going back to the cart and the horse. I kind of feel like right now the cart is in front of the horse, that we don't have all the data yet before us. I mean, I do realize sometimes these agreements take time, but, you know, there was just a meeting yesterday that we have yet to be briefed on. And also, as the chairman had pointed out, that there's been a lot of mistakes and a lot of just kind of overlooking things in the last year. My question would be, when or have you met with the department to determine what are all the requirements that need to be met before you can open up for the season?
So, I myself have been involved with meeting with the department on 2 occasions, with the second one most recently as yesterday, the first one introductory in person, but there have been plenty of interactions with our legal in our lobby, with the department, getting that information. I can't speak to how that content rolls up to the commissioner level, but I know that we've been working on this at least for 3 months.
Sorry, guys, I'm looking through my list of people who have requested to speak. Mr. Claus, do you like to speak?
Again, briefly, Chairman Coolidge, simply because, again, information is coming out during this meeting that was previously unknown. In response to one of your questions of Mr. Marshall, it seems fairly clear that Peninsula Pacific, there was an equivocation with respect to, quote, profit, but it seems pretty clear that Peninsula Pacific is receiving a share of the take on parimutuel wagering, which again, if no entity that is not a permittee permitted by this commission may share in any revenue derived from parimutuel wagering. And you've just heard a recapitulation by Mr. Marshall that it is not Arizona Downs that is operating the race meet, or that proposes to operate the race meet. It is a non-permitted entity that is proposing to operate the race meet, which means it is not subject to regulation by this commission. And that just seems to me to be a fundamental problem for the commission, but also a problem that undermines the ability of this permit to go forward, because what's happening is that a permittee is asking for a permit purporting to operate a race meet, but has revealed today that the entity that has applied for the permit is not actually going to operate the race meet. Instead, a different entity that is not permitted is going to operate the race meet and is going to receive revenue that it is not permitted to receive. So thank you.
Mr. Alford, I saw you raise your hand. I'll give you 2 minutes.
Thank you. It's difficult to listen to somebody describe the relationship between Arizona Downs and P2E who hasn't read the contract and the agreement between us. There is no money going from Arizona Downs to Peninsula Pacific. The direction of the money is only one way, from them to us. So for for Monarch's lawyer to say that they are, he's convinced that we're paying purse money or handle money to Peninsula Pacific is just wrong, and it just wears me out. Every single meeting, somebody has to say something to try to put us out of business from the Monarch side, or the Turf Paradise side, the same thing, same lawyer. So let me put that out. And secondly, with respect to licensing, Mr. Marshall has told you that if in the judgment of the division, Mr. Casillas, who we haven't heard from yet, they conclude that he needs to get a license, or if P2E needs to get a license or a permit, they've been licensed all around the country and would rapidly do that if that's the conclusion that the division or this commission wants them to do. We're not trying to hide anything. And finally, Chairman Coolidge, it upsets me and it actually embarrasses me, and I guess I need to apologize if the impression that you have gained over the years is that we are hiding or skirting the law or trying to bend the law. I can say honestly, on behalf of me and all of our owners, we have tried desperately to do everything we've been asked to do. Sometimes we failed, but we've tried to do everything we've been asked to do. We've tried to produce the documents that are asked for, and in fact, there's quite a few mischaracterizations, I think, in the report, but it's not worth it to us to fight line by line through that. I will tell you right now, we will not be that kind of company that you have criticized in your statement, and I can assure you we won't do that, and we will not bend the rules, and we'll do everything we can. It's been a fight and a half, as you know, getting boycotted and COVID and all that stuff, but and I'm sure with the assistance of the folks from P2E, you won't be saying this about us ever again.
And let me be clear, and I hope I didn't convey that I think that you've been knowingly dodging the law. That is not my intention, and I hope that didn't. My intention is, or I shouldn't even say it that way. I think Arizona Downs is really trying to run racing. I think you got thrown into the deep end of the pool, and you're trying to figure it out. However, we consistently see this, not doing it the legal way, not filing it the appropriate way, all the while we as a commission, and maybe I should just be speaking for myself here, want to do what we can to ensure that horse racing is year-round. So on one hand, since we keep using cart and horse, they come to the horse, and on the other, we're trying to circle the horse around to get it back in front, and we're never able to get it the right way. So that, to me, is the holdup, and really why I wanted to be transparent today, just to put all of my cards out on how I sit on it. The commission isn't just me, and we have multiple people that I'm sure feel differently than I do, or maybe they don't. But I wanted to be very, very clear on where I am coming from on this, to see hopefully you and P2E or whoever your partners are going to be in the future build something the right way so that we can continue this horse racing, year-round horse racing that we want to build. We just need to do it legally so that we can get it done.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and we'll endeavor to do that. And I hope it'll apply to all the permittees. There's Turf Paradise closed without permission recently. I don't know if that's a violation. It might be. We're all fighting it, and we're gonna do better, Chairman Coolidge, and that's our promise.
Dave, I just wanted to also say, just from myself, I can remember I can't remember if it was yourself or your brother, when you first time heard you on the phone talking about Arizona Downs, how excited I was, because I knew what it meant to our men and women at the farms, the backside and all that. But I just want to know that going forward, these hiccups that we've been having throughout the last 3 years, these hiccups are going away, and we're going to right this ship and get everything in order. We're going to have constant communications with the director, finding out, is there anything we need to get done, need to submit it, and get these things taken care of. We can't continue going down this path of blocking the Suez Canal.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, this is Jerry Sims. May I ask a question of two of the responders?
2 minutes, sir.
My first one is to Dave Arthur. Dave, I sense a lot of indignation that anyone would say that you did anything knowingly wrong.
Mr. Sims, I'm going to jump in. Hold on, Mr. Sims. We're specifically talking about a line item in the agenda as it is now. I don't want to see Arizona Downs go versus Turf Paradise and Turf Paradise go Arizona Downs. I think all the commissioners have heard it.
Very well. I have a question of Mr. Marshall. Mr. Marshall, could you please tell me and the audience why you can't just put the $3.5 million up now? I haven't heard you respond to that, but I'd like to.
Hey, Mr. Sims, with all due respect, I'd prefer to answer that question to the chairman.
I'd be interested in hearing it if you'd be so kind, Mr. Marshall.
Yeah, we had a meeting with Director Casillas and staff yesterday on finances, and we're essentially waiting on direction from the department on how they would like to see that handled.
Understood.
Let me ask it a little differently. Let me ask it just a little differently.
Mr. Sims, one of the commissioners would like to speak.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Hover, and I would, if I could, please like to address this to Mr. Marshall. Mr. Marshall, just to clarify something for me, can you hear me? Am I coming through all right, or is there a big delay?
You're good. I can hear you.
Okay. Am I correct to understand that your involvement with Arizona Downs is to guide the operations through your consult and management?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, and I think that clears up the query by Mr. Sims' attorney, Mr. Claus. I think the important words are consult and management.
Thank you.
Commissioner Profiter, Corey, do you have any other questions?
No questions. I know myself, I would like to, if Rudy could maybe speak a little bit as to what he can speak about. I'd like to hear from Rudy.
Okay, this is Rudy Casillas. What would you like to know, Mr. Gray?
Here, I was not on mute, and I thought I was on mute. In your opinion, are there, because, I think this has all happened relatively quickly, are there any documents lacking as far as these new agreements going? Do we need to have things looked at by the auditor now that there's new investment in place? Again, I just want to make sure all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, and that we are looking at all this going forward.
Yes, let me give you some overview. We have met with folks from Peninsula Pacific. We did have a meeting yesterday, a Zoom meeting where they presented some of their finances to us. We wanted to ensure that they had adequate financials to ensure that they could fund this race meet that they're proposing. We did a quick review, and it appears that Peninsula Pacific is well funded. They've got enough revenue to cover their long-term debt. The 1.01 average, and we feel comfortable that they do have the revenue to go forward with funding the $3.5 million. Regarding documentation, We're still waiting on the application from Mr. John Marshall and Jill. I don't recall her last name. She will be a consultant along with Mr. Marshall. And we need the licensing fees and fingerprint cards. I will be communicating with them depending on what the decision is regarding the $3.5 million. My proposal to them was that if this is going to be approved, that they would have to put that $3.5 million into an escrow account, the entire amount. They initially wanted to only put 1.5, and I rejected that, said it had to be the entire $3.5 million. So that's pending. We have yet to receive from Arizona Downs a letter from the city of Prescott that they're approving the race meet up there. So I share the same concerns as Mr. Coolidge and Mr. Gorey, that not to be a dead horse here, but the cart is before the horse. You know, Arizona Downs met with HBPA, came to terms with them to do this race meet. They met with Peninsula Pacific to fund the meet, but they failed to come forward to the division and the racing commission to ensure that they had a permit in place that was going to allow them to proceed. So those are some of the concerns at this point. But I have more as far as a recommendation once you get all other facts in front of you.
Director Casillas, I did have a question for you. I don't understand why we're approving a 2.5-year-old permit. What happened to the past 2 years' issues with whether we approve or disapprove this permit? We're actually only approving for the next 4 months. It doesn't make sense to me that it took so long to get here.
Well, the application was for fiscal year 19, 20, and 21.
Right.
The permit expires June 30th of 21. Now, if they submit a renewal in timely, we would have 60 days to do all our reviews and provide a recommendation to the commission to either approve or disapprove that renewal permit application. Not go beyond June 30th into a new permit year. Have to supply a renewal application. The commission cannot extend the temporary beyond June 30th. And as a regulator, I'm trying to stay consistent with how we issue permits. So we have to go with that, and it would only be approved up to June 30th of 21.
So renewal would have to be under the same conditions, or it would be a new permit in June, or how does that work?
Well, they would have to supply a renewal application. We would have to do our due diligence. Right now, as it stands, they've committed to fund this upcoming summer race meet from June 1 through September 15th of 21. Their agreement with Arizona Downs is open-ended. They have no triggers in there that say, if this happens, we will execute our purchase options. They don't have a trigger to say, well, if this happens, we're going to go ahead and fund, the next 2 or 3 years. Although the agreement does not say anything about possible legislation approving historical racing devices. They took over all agreements from ELS and put it into Peninsula Pacific. So bottom line is that I met with Peninsula Pacific and their management crew. Larry Lucas was in attendance, and they spoke highly of what they've done with other jurisdictions, Virginia, how they got purses up to the level they have. And a lot of it was done through the HHR historical horse racing devices. So even though it's not stated in the agreement, I think a lot of the contract options and further funding is based on what may happen with the legislature this session. So, there's concerns going forward. Even if you do decide to approve this race meet through June 30th, and if they supply renewal through for the next meet, and they can show that Peninsula is going to fund that meet, or they have cash inflows from other sources that we do our due diligence on, and we can give you a positive recommendation that the money is there and they're not tied into organized crime or any bad associations. We can give a positive recommendation for the next race meet, but until we do that due diligence, we cannot. I hope that answered your question.
Director, I actually have a question. So right now, the temporary permit, they could continue running till June 30th without any action from us, correct?
That is correct, and then it would expire.
Because again, back with the cart before the horse, I think there is some due diligence that needs to be done here, and I don't think it has been done. It's not here before us yet, so I'm not sure we can make a decision without a lot of these things being taken care of. So I'm almost wondering if it's better to focus on submitting for that following after June 30th and get moving forward on that.
Well, what you have in front of you is the fiscal year 19-2021 application. Until you get the new application, you cannot render any kind of decision on that. That has to be noticed and put on a separate agenda. So you have to make a decision one way or the other regarding this application.
At this point in time, Mr. Chair, I would move to go into executive session so we can have some discussion with our council.
I'll second that.
Thank you. I have a motion by Commissioner Goree to go into executive session and a second by Chair Coolidge. Roll call proceeds as, Commissioner Coolidge?
Yes.
Commissioner Goree?
Yes.
Commissioner Hover?
Yes.
Commissioner Profiter?
Yes. Cassie, before we move in, let's reconvene at 12 o'clock in the executive session, please.
Somebody might want to let Ted know he's already there.
No.
We'll do that. Okay, the time is 11:53, and we are in recess for an executive session. Thank you. This is the second open session of the April 1st, 2021 Arizona Racing Commission special meeting being held via Google Meet.
Okay.
Commissioner
Candy said you're going out for shavings today.
Excuse me, can you please mute your mic? We're going back into open session. Thank you. Roll call, Commissioner Coolidge?
Present.
Commissioner Goree?
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Hover?
Present.
Commissioner Profiter?
Present.
Thank you. We have a quorum, sir. It's 12:35. It's your show.
Thank you, ma'am. I will open the floor up to my fellow commissioners on any and all items they want to discuss.
Well, first of all, there is a little concern about the general manager has not yet submitted the application to be the general manager for this track, and I also do have some concerns. I did hear earlier that the general manager was going to be reporting to P2E, which leads me to believe P2E is the ones fully in charge, and I would just like to see more documents before making a decision as to what is this, where does the responsibilities lie? I also want to make sure that we don't have an issue where there's somebody out there with ownership that we should technically be requiring a full brand new application, not voting on this one. So I made just myself, again, I know there was meetings yesterday, and again, we were talking about the cart in front of the horse. This has been almost 3 years of a pattern of last minute, please bail us out. We got to stop this.
Yeah, I'd pair with some of the items I talked about earlier in the meeting, which were, I don't know how it's possible we still don't have annual financial audits. I don't know how it's possible we still don't have complete financial statements and balance sheets. The P2E holding documents and information there, monthly status or status after the early closing. These are pretty significant items that should be in every single packet. And I know the previous commissioners weren't here last year when those came in and bailed them out at the end then. We were short financial documents then, and when did we get them? The night before the commission meeting. So that's significant. And we find ourselves, do we save horse racing as a whole, bailing out the company that's doing it, or do we enforce the law? And it's not, this is one I'm very happy the commission, not a fun one to try to figure out.
I also had a question. How long would it take to see the licensing on the people who are applying? How long does it take to get that? Mr. Weiss's managerial license, how long does that take to get? How could we have it hold in submissions?
Commissioner Proctor, I think you're asking that to the department, correct?
I'm sorry. To the department, how long does it take to see this stuff? And I guess to the authors, how the missing documents, is it possible to get them to us so we can make a decision with documents in hand instead of guessing by the next meeting? So 2 questions, 2 people.
This is Director Casillas. To answer your question, it's dependent on the applicants. We can make the request. It's up to them to submit everything on a timely basis. We informed P2E of the applications we needed from Mr. Marshall and Jill some time ago. We still have not received them.
I know Mr. Arthur had raised his hand, so on top of that, I would ask him, how quickly can you get this rectified?
And just to be clear with everyone else, the floor is called on by the chair, but with the commissioner, I'd like to hear from Mr. Arthur.
Thank you. One of the things I didn't do was go into the report from Mr. Estrada, but one of the things that is mentioned in there is that we were obligated to give monthly summaries or reports. That was never asked of us, so far as I could tell. So, and again, I'm not trying to make excuses, Chairman Coolidge, but I'm just telling you, I have no record of ever being told to make monthly reports after we reopened, because the track ran for another couple of, a couple months, and then we went back into the OTB system, and there would have been no reason to give monthly reports then. So we did give certified financials from our accountant to the division as we were asked to do. And I have letters that describe what we sent them. So I don't want to revisit all of that, but what I would ask is that if there's something that somebody needs from us immediately, we'll go ahead and do that. But one of the things that happens is when somebody says, we need your accountant to give us all of the current materials through March, those materials need to be accumulated, and you can't give a March report on April 1st. But again, I'm not trying to stall, but there were some things in that report that I could have said, we did it, we did it, we did it, we did it, and that's why they allowed us to reopen. And we gave information on the borrows, and we gave information on the lenders, and we gave all this information, and that's why we reopened, and we had a good finish to the meet. But we, and I'm sure I'm speaking for Mr. Marshall, are prepared to produce whatever we can, but today is the day that our temporary permit switch from temporary to permanent we thought would be voted on, and I'd kind of like to get that over with based upon the information that you've already received, so that we can be confident in telling the horsemen that we're going to get started on and send out the horseman's book and all of the things that need to happen to get the meet going. I don't want to cut any corners. I don't want to bend any rules. But when we're asked to do something, we do it, and when we don't do it, somebody comes to us and says you didn't do it, and we don't have the you didn't do it letters, or because I thought we accomplished or we produced all the documents we needed to produce. And again, that was a year and a half ago. We're now here. We've made a deal. We want to produce whatever information you want for Peninsula Pacific. We want you to be confident we can run. And now we're all of a sudden faced with this question of what do we do about a meet that splits the fiscal year? There's never, ever been this problem for Turf Paradise because their meet always ran in the middle of a fiscal year. Now, apparently, there's this issue of our permit extending through June, but we don't have the meet finishing until September. I would hope that there would be a way to extend that permit through the end of our meet, and then we can get going to apply for the next meet. But there's got to be a way to do that without cutting our meet in half, and just because the fiscal year happened to fall in the middle of our meet. But that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Casillas, can you clarify something for me, please? Has the department received annual financial audit from Arizona Downs as requested?
The department did request financial audits from them. We did receive a document that was not a certified audit. On the document from the auditor, there was a statement on the document saying this is not a certified audit.
Did the department receive a complete financial statement and balance sheet from Arizona?
That request came in after they had to cease operations for lack of funding, and after Michael and Chris DeBarro decided to fund the race meet with $1.2 million, we asked Arizona Downs to submit monthly balance sheets and financials, because I kept getting phone calls and emails from all these service providers that were not being paid by the authors, and they were complaining that they could not collect on the performance bonds because they're not covered in that. And so I asked them to submit on a monthly basis the financials and accounts payables and what have you. that occurred for a short period of time, then ceased.
Thank you, Director Casillas. Since P2E has changed their stance on the legislative side, has received the Pete's holding document information?
If that was directed to me, would you please repeat it?
Yeah, has received the holding documents information from P2E as requested?
We've received copies of the agreement, and we've looked at the financials. Like I stated earlier, we're missing applications, fingerprint cards, fees at this point. And we have not had the $3.5 million put into an escrow account as of yet.
When reviewing the holdings documents and information for P2E, is there any information there to tell us what the agreement is with P2E? I still can't get a clear answer from them, even asking you maybe even 3 times of how their agreement works, whether they have some sort of ownership stake. It sounds like they Arizona Downs is their client. Ever heard of a firm having a client that pays one client? Normally it's the other way, so I would like an understanding on how that works.
It's a good question, and I'm not sure that I can give you a full, complete answer on that. In reviewing the agreement, like I said, there was no talk about the legislation. There were some sections in there that covered potential exercise of ownership options and the continuation of funding into the next 2 to 3 years. But there's no information that indicates anything that would trigger such options. So it was left open-ended, which causes me concerns for Arizona Downs and the Arizona racing industry, that if they fund this summer meet, what's going to happen going forward after that? Arizona Downs does not have an alternative plan from any other entity if things fall through with P2E.
Mr. Author, or is Mr. Marshall still on? I would love to get some clarity on how that...
Let me explain that the agreement. First of all, did you get a copy of it from did the commissioners get a copy of the sale and purchase option agreement between?
Yes.
Okay. So it's long and it's incredibly complicated, but essentially it is this, that if that Arizona Downs is forbearing, is not going to try to sell its business to anyone else for the next 3 years, so long as Peninsula Pacific pays certain amounts of money to Arizona Downs. And Peninsula Pacific has the right to terminate it at this point after this meet, or they can continue. And there's provisions in there of when the decision is made to whether they fund the next year's meet, and then there's provisions in there to whether they fund the following year's meet. And that is solely up to Peninsula Pacific whether they want to do it. And so they have purchased an option to buy our company. And the cost of that option to purchase and the cost for us to forbear and not selling it to someone else is listed in the agreement, including the cost of the meet, including monthly payments to us, etc. So if they do choose to purchase, then the purchase price is provided in there, and closing information is provided in there also. So as part of that agreement, we are essentially retaining them for certain activities, including assisting us and advising us and consulting with us on running on the meet. So I hope that's clear now on what the agreement is. There is no trigger for when they have to buy our company. It's entirely up to them as to whether they want to do it or not. But the price is fixed, and if they want to buy it and they want to continue the right to buy it, they have to make certain payments to us over time. It's an option, what do they call this? An option agreement. Is that?
Yeah, I'm maybe not the businessman that you are, and I'll be the first one to say it. But I'm just trying to wrap my head around the fact that a company, at one point, you say that you're retaining them, but they're paying you $3.5 million to be first in line to purchase your company at a set price. Is that
correct?
Layman's way of saying it?
Correct, and some other payments, but yes.
May I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
So the next permit is required to start soon. Have you begun the process or submitted any papers for the next permit? Because this one.
No, honestly, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry I interrupted you. We have not. My understanding, and maybe it's an improper understanding, is that this permit that we currently have and the permit for that is temporary, for which we were trying to switch it, I guess for lack of a better word, to permanent, ran through the end of our meet. I'm hearing now that there's some question whether it did run through the end of our meet, and because of the anomaly of a fiscal year splitting our meet in half, that somehow there's something else we have to do. But in answer directly to Commissioner Profiter's question, and that was you, I hope, that asked it, we have not filed for the next permit, which we thought began at the end of this meet, which is the only way that made sense to us for the last 3 years, that's the way it would work. And then, so we would apply for that permit, and we may have P2E's participation. If we don't, then we will do it the same way that Turf Paradise does it. We will continue to expand our OTB system. We will continue to try to work with the folks at Monarch, and they may or may not give us the signal to everybody. We may or may not end up with a single network system. We don't really know. But that would be what we would apply for the next permit. But again, this is a brand new concept to me, that somehow in the middle of our meet we have to start all over for another permit. That surprises me, and something that we had not planned on, and certainly we had not ever spoken to anyone at the division about. So what we'd really like to be able to do somewhere in this group meeting is to extend the current permit through the end of our meet, and then we start over again. And then we apply for 3 more meets like we did, because again, when we applied for our original permit, we provided race dates for year 1 in 2019, race dates for year 2 in 2020, and race dates for year 3 in 2021, and the permit was granted. And now we're finding out, I guess you didn't really get the race dates in 2021, you only got. So I don't know, it's a mess, but that's the honest answer to what's going on.
Thank you.
I do have a question regarding general manager. I do believe, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, in order to be granted a permanent permit, you must have a GM in place.
I would accept that.
And as of right now, while a GM has been named, he hasn't gone through the process of submitting his application, and that would need to be done before even granting the permit.
I think what we run into, Commissioner Gore, is and don't get me wrong, that we're trying to bend the rules, but we're nitpicking a specific concept that we don't really have the time. We didn't really have the time to get all worked out because Mike Weiss is already permitted at Rito. So we would hope that there would be some kind of a conditional approval that says, assuming you get everything approved as you should with the management deal and what's benefit is permitted and all of those things, we can't control the clock. You know, we're getting close the best we can. This permit meeting was set for April 1st. It wasn't set by us. The audit that was done was set to be completed on February 15th. That day wasn't set by us. That was set by the division. And then the auditor's report came out, and then we had to go to and now we're before you on April 1st, and we're getting ready to run. We're not asking for much, just to say we're going to obey whatever we have to do, but give us a little break here. And again, Chairman Coolidge, I'm not looking for exceptions. I'm not looking for gimmicks or loopholes. I'm just stating the reality that this meeting was set on April the 1st by the division to approve to take care of this temporary permit and turn it into a permanent permit. And all of the things that go into that, we think we've complied with, and we would like it to go through the end of the meeting.
Thanks. Director Casillas, how long does a temporary permit take to file? I know the department has 60 days to review, but what would you assume a track would take to submit the documents for a temporary permit?
Generally, when we get an application, we would expect that everything is submitted timely and that all questions have been answered. As stated previously, we, in this particular instance, there was a few missteps, and the administrative complete letter went out when it shouldn't have been because all documentation was not in. Generally, on permittees, when they submit application, it used to run for almost up to 700 and I believe 62 days that the division had to review and get all documentation. We've tried to shortcut all of that to be a little more efficient, and there was a couple missteps that occurred. But it's all dependent on the applicant permittee, depending on how efficient they are in getting documentation to the division that can be reviewed. So it varies from permittee to permittee. I'm sorry I can't give you a perfect number for it, but it's just dependent on how cooperative they are.
It's maybe just a statement. I'm hoping the Arthur brothers understand, and even the division. Rudy just mentioned that letter went out when it shouldn't have. There's been some mistakes along the way, and I just hope the Arthur brothers understand. We can't continue going the way it's gone. We've got to rectify this. We have got to be on top of it, and saying you didn't know is not an excuse. I would be calling to the director daily. Is there something required of me? Let's step us through this process. these mistakes are hurting the horsemen, the men and women. And we shouldn't be screwing around with their lives like this. We need to rectify this.
And I'll echo Commissioner point Hartman as a whole for the miss a few years ago, and now that we're having to clean it up. Mr. Sal raised you'd like to add?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Any of the commissioners have anything else they want to bring up?
I just would like to echo all of our concerns for the horsemen. So we need to figure out how best to help them through this and not leave them hanging, but help them take steps.
Mr. Arthur, can I pop back for me? Question for you.
Yes. Hello?
When you previously filled your permit application, temporary application, do you remember how long that?
No, it wasn't a big deal. We filed. There's a form that it's called a new application form. I don't have it, but I suppose there's a renewal application. In fact, we filed after we had trouble in that 2019, we refiled our application with more updated information, as I recall. We scrambled around and got that done quickly. We have one less owner now, so it should take even less time. It's a rather 25 or something page deal, and it says, how most of it is current. Most of it we could probably cut and paste from the last one. Who you're married to and what's your wife's maiden name and all that good stuff. How many cars you own and all that. And we could get it out fairly rapidly. I don't know exactly what you think would be required from anybody else involved. Mike Weiss's application, he could probably Xerox it, and still a Xerox is a word, and send it in. But if the issue really is how fast can we apply for next year's meet, is that your question, so that we can get this gap area covered between June?
My question is, how fast could we get a new application submitted? Which is why I was asking that they would have to think it's 60 days to review any application received.
What are we applying for? What exactly are we applying for the next permit? Is that what you're saying? For the next 3 years or the next 2 years?
It would. Well, I guess I would farm that one over to Director Casillas. Submit another
90 days
temporary permit.
Well, Mr. Chairman, based on all the ongoing concerns with Arizona Downs financial instability, granted they have P2E to fund the summer meet if approved. However, there's no information that the division possesses that Arizona Downs will have liquid cash available to them after this summer meet. So for the commission to entertain issuing any kind of approval for any future permit is kind of premature. We would have to have application. We'd have to have a thorough financial audit done to ensure that they have enough liquid cash available and that they are a viable entity to be able to conduct live racing and operate OTB wagering facilities.
Mr. Stiles, I saw your hand raised again. Is it?
Yes. Let me say that I've been at this agency for 7 years. Okay, was hired in 2014, and let me clear up the general manager situation. There has been times where committees had general managers approved by the Racing Commission, not only during their permit, but when there's been a switch of ownerships, okay, or not ownership, or a switch of GMs. So the commission, and if you go back and look at your history of the commission, they have approved general managers before permits have been issued, okay. Regarding the temporary permits, okay, I've been here again for 7 years and have gone through several permit applications, and it has always been a policy that when a permittee has submitted a renewal application before their existing permit expires, they can continue on the existing permit until the commission makes a decision. So therefore, it would be possible that if you were to make a decision on this permit, that this permittee could reapply for a permit, receive a temporary permit, and you could go ahead and make a decision on the future of that second permit at that time. Regarding the missteps on the permit, this is the first I've heard of it. Regarding the misstep as far as the administratively incomplete letter, this is the first I've heard of that.
Excuse me, let the record reflect that Commissioner Hover has left the meeting. I understand she will be calling back in on phone shortly. Thank you, sorry.
Lastly, I've done more than a dozen permits in the 7 years, and this is the way we have done it. We've issued temporary permits, and in difference to Ms. Lundy, Turf Paradise have had temporary permits in 2012, 2015, and 2018. Thank you.
Okay, let the record reflect that Ms. Hover is in and can hear us via phone, and it's 108. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I make a motion, do I have any other commissioners that have anything else they'd like to say?
Well, I mean, we're between a rock and a hard place, I think, on this. We've got a lot of people counting on the sport running, and I mean, I want to see Arizona Downs be successful, and it's just really hard, and I hope everyone understands that, you know, being on the commission years ago used to be easy. Now it pretty much sucks as a job. But I want to see them be successful. I think I would personally be in favor of granting them this permit, full well knowing that they're going to have to resubmit, but this stuff has got to stop. And I want commitment that this stuff is going to stop. This last minute, I'm getting tired of it. You know, it's just getting old. We need to be ahead of the game. We can't be behind it. This is ridiculous.
Commissioner, are you making a motion?
Yeah, let me go ahead and make a motion to throw it out on the floor and see where we land. I go ahead and make a motion to approve the 2019, 2020, 2021 permit for Arizona Downs, which expires at the end of the 2021 fiscal year.
I second it.
Thank you. I have a motion on the floor from Commissioner Garay to approve the Arizona Downs permit for years 2019, 2020, 2021, and it expires at the end of fiscal year 2021, which would be, I'm going to add this as June 30th, 2021 for clarification. And Commissioner Profiter is seconded. I'll do the roll call. Commissioner Coolidge?
I vote no. and by doing so, I want to cite that I am concerned about 5-10.
I'm sorry, you broke up. 5-10.
8.
Thank you.
A2B, establishing who the true is Arizona Downs. We still don't have the financial documents. We still don't have the annual financial audits. There's a lot thing in this packet. So with that, I'm going to vote now.
Okay, Commissioner Gray.
For the men and women at the farms and backside and all the others involved, I'm going to vote yes.
Commissioner Hover.
I vote yes.
Commissioner Profiter.
I vote yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. Looks like we have some more people that's hands are raised. I don't think we need to do a call to the public unless we're going to have to go and, well, I guess we wouldn't have to vote on it for the next meeting. So,
right. Mr. Chair, I would just also like to put out, say, to the Arthur brothers and everyone involved, this trickeration has got to stop. Get ahead of the game. This is it. We're not playing around anymore. Get your act together.
I'll even echo that since, where Mr. Saray is, where I am. Instead of waiting for us to come and bring the hammer down on you, I would establish an open line of communication with Director Casillas and others to ensure you're getting what they need to get you to make sure that you have a clear understanding of what's needed and do it the right way before we have to circle back with it again.
I hear you loud and clear.
And furthermore, the approval that was just made is only made through June 30th.
Yes. How do we fix that? How do we extend it through the meet? And is that a question of the director?
I would get in front of the department, as it's not on our list for this agenda, but okay. I would become very close friends with the department moving forward.
We couldn't be closer.
Good. We'll leave that one alone. Okay, call to the public. Any other commissioners have anything else they'd like to bring up? Otherwise, the next scheduled meeting or commission meeting will be 10 a.m. Thursday, April 8th.
Excuse me, sir. I'm sorry to cut you off.
That is incorrect.
That meeting was canceled. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. That meeting was canceled. We have rescheduled it for the regular meeting at 10 a.m. on Monday, April 19th, 2021 via Google Meet. Sorry.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
With that, I'll hear a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Commissioner Coolidge?
Yes.
Commissioner Gray?
Yes.
Commissioner Hover?
Yes.
Commissioner Profiter?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. It is 1:14 p.m. and this meeting is adjourned.